Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Jennifer Sconyers, founder of Abundance Leadership Consulting, a consultancy dedicated to transforming workplace culture and leadership through deep rational work, equity-centered coaching, and organizational change. Jennifer, welcome to Founders Future.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to dive in. I always like to start from the beginning. So take me back to before you started ALC. What were you doing beforehand? And then what was really the motivation behind starting the company?
Yeah, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've known since I was 15 years old. And back then, I thought I'd be in retail. I thought I'd have clothing and shoes, and that was my jam as a teenager. But in the back of my mind, I always knew I'd have my own shingle out. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My great-grandfather's an entrepreneur. So I guess you could say it's in my blood. But I've always wanted to be my own boss and have an impact. And so every job out of college, I just gave myself permission to try on new things, to gain new skills. And so it was really a couple decades plus of just figuring things out, trying skills on that brought me to the place where I knew it was time. But I started off in marketing, advertising, and PR, and went from there and did work in advocacy and nonprofits and government and corporate America. So I gave myself permission to really do some skill building and to look in different environments to grow my skills. And so that allowed me to finally be ready when I was just like, I don't want to report to someone else anymore. It is time. I have my own shingle out. And that's when ALC was born.
I love that. Let's dive into ALC, what it looks like today, to give the listeners more context.
Yeah. So Abundance Leadership Consulting, I affectionately call it ALC, is really meant to be a one-stop shop consultancy for organizations and teams to make them peak performing and thrive. That's the goal. And what really, I guess the catalyst for me finally ready to launch was I had been working in different industries like I named before, and I would notice some of the same challenges no matter where I worked. There were limitations of pathways to success. So in terms of who would get invested in leadership, it seemed to be very selective. I know the right person. I oftentimes would find that I would invest in myself, that I wouldn't wait for a company to invest in me. So I'd see that as a challenge. And then there's also just problems with turnover. Happy staff don't leave unless there's barriers for their growth. So that was something I noticed no matter what the industry was in. And then my last industry was working in national nonprofits. And so I just noticed there, it's like the right hand and what the left hand was doing when it came to funders and who got funded, different strategies. So I was ready because I got agitated enough to say, okay, I can help solve this problem. I shouldn't wait for someone to solve this problem. And that's when Abundance Leadership Consulting was born. I'll also say ALC in its inception, I think this is important context. I think you have an international audience that listens to you. We were founded April 1st of 2016. And I named that because that was on the cusp of a major election cycle here in the States. And I was going to launch the company no matter what, but I will say those election outcomes did help create the path for the type of work we would need to do just based on what was happening in the greater context in the US. So I will name that there is a way in which ALC is nimble to what's happening here in the greater context of the United States. And because of that, our services, I want to make sure that we right-size them based on what's happening in the moment. And so we have consultancy services, we offer coaching, facilitation, and training, and we do adapt them based on what's happening in the greater environment in the workplace.
So you have consulting, coaching, facilitation. What is it like? What would you say is actually the main driver of revenue for ALC?
Yeah, the consultancy part of the business has been the main driver. And it's been based on me as the founder in my network, which is also, we're going to be 10 in April. And so my motivation is the last year and a half or so is making sure this business grows bigger than me. I think that's a challenge with founders, especially when we do service-based businesses. People hire us. because they like and trust us. So over the years, I've grown a team. We have a total of 8 people, a combination of W-2 and 1099 and folks that work for us who are practitioners, who are also on the business side. And so I've spent the last, I don't know, 18 months or so really equipping myself, my team with more skills so that the business outlives me. So the consultancy side of the house will still do. That's what we'll do in terms of going into an organization. We'll do retreats. We'll do different types of employee interventions with them. We'll do strategic planning. We also have e-learning tools, and that was part of the, okay, this has to be bigger than me. So we have some public-facing e-learning curriculum now. On the website, you'll find our managing professional relationships content. That's on there now. There's more to come, but really just allowing some of the things I've been doing the last decade to shine. And also, this in the last 5 years, making sure I'm not the only practitioner, because I think that's a challenge of, as founders, if we're working in our business, we're not working on our business. And so for me to work on the business, that means I need to have people who can do that work.
Yeah, no, that's super, super powerful. Is it all in person, or are there virtual offers that you guys have as well?
Virtual, yeah. So in the early days of the business, it was me flying over the US. I spent more time in airports than at home. I'm based in Columbus, Ohio, but I was always wheeled up somewhere. And right before COVID, I told my coach, because while we're coaches, I also believe that we should receive coaching. He was just like, this isn't sustainable, because from day one, I knew I didn't want to be a solopreneur. I wanted to grow this business. And so before COVID, before any kind of pandemic language even happened, I made the choice, we need to find a way to have our offerings online. It can't just be about me in front of a classroom or me in front of people. We need to have virtual offerings. I will say we leveraged the pandemic. We leveraged those conditions where I didn't have to enroll people in the idea of online learning. They were willing to try it because most of us were in front of a Zoom of some type. So for me, it was like, how do we take in-person content, make it really high value online that people can do live and in person online, or it's pre-recorded. And so we leveraged the pandemic to really grow that side of the business.
Yeah, I love that. I'm super curious now. You're about to hit 10 years old. When it comes to lead generation, when it comes to customer acquisition,
Yeah.
what are you doing from a marketing and lead gen front?
That's a great question, because at this phase in org development, I think it's between years 7 and 10 is where you have your pivot points. It's like you make choices, and at this point of development determine your future. And so we'll still take referrals, of course. Like people who like to work with us, refer them to other people, will always do that. But I've had to put my marketing hat on again and be like, okay, so in the early days, what did I do? And I'll just name some founders, when they do consultancies, they have what I call a sky drop of clients that like fall from the clouds. I got this huge contract. No, I had to work for every dime. So I remember what I did in those first 18 months. And so back out networking. Also, I'll just say, as a former communications professional, I'm like, we need an earned media strategy. We need online, we need earned media. So for me, doing things like this podcast is a version of an earned media strategy to get us out in front of new audiences. So that's been an important thing as well. And then any speaking engagements or symposiums, those kinds of things, I'm invited to, I'll go to. So it's just, at this point, it's about getting in front of some new audiences. I've been reintroducing us to people that we worked with in the past. Here's where now, here's what we offer today, because that's important, because we've evolved. And then also just getting in front of new people.
Got it. Have you thought about doing any sort of paid ads campaigns and things of that sort?
Yeah, so I think that's also part of the strategy. We're starting with earned, but also know we want to have paid. So where I'm housed, I'll give them a shout out. It's called Haven Collective. It's actually a co-working space based in Columbus, Ohio. And one of the things that I think is so important for founders is to not be isolated, which is a risk for us. And so barring COVID, I've always been in some sort of co-working environment, some space where I'm with other people with complementary skill sets. That's been a way to really think about the business in unique ways, to develop different types of partnerships. It's also a way to support enrollment. So when I knew it was time for me to get out of my house, because I got very comfortable during the COVID era, we had a lot of incoming, right? So I just had my head down in the work. Being in a place like this is important. And I name this because there is a paid advertising firm upstairs. And so she and I've had some conversations about what paid ads could look like for us. I'll also name, because of my marketing background, and I also think it's important, we do need marketing support as founders. I think that's something that I noticed. I did the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program last fall. And so it was with a lot of entrepreneurs in that space. And the thing I would hear is from folks like, oh, I don't know if I need marketing. Now, mind you, there were 5 marketers in our cohort. But was like, no, but for real, you need it. Like, you need to figure out a way to market your business, to tell your business story in different ways, paid and earned. And so it is a part of our strategy. But the first part is organic. So I have some like 3,000 followers on LinkedIn only because I've been on it for so many years, like 2007. I'm like, well, we need to convert that, right? We need to actually move them over to the business side of the house so they know what we're doing. And that's been one of those things that I've been doing in the background. And then we all started a podcast because at the end of the
Nice.
day, I really love hearing people's stories. And we also had a marketer who was just like, Jennifer, you need to tell your story better. And I realized, oh, I do what our clients do. So in the work, talking about the work. And so it's a win-win for us. I can tell our story. We have our partners, our clients, current and former on the podcast, tell their story. It's shared social proof. It's a win-win. So those are also strategies that we're deploying. And I think the other piece is I'm enjoying it. We're doing SEO strategies. I'm liking it. I'm doing more writing. I think that's the thing, being in business this long, you can start to hate your business if you don't find the joy in it anymore. And so for me, it's just about enjoying the magic of building a business all over again and letting it grow and thrive because it is very much a journey.
Yeah, I love that. I'm super curious what the sales process looks like. So how do you actually take somebody who maybe doesn't know you and turn them into a client? What are the different steps that you go through?
For sure. I think at the consultant side house, that's the easiest thing to explain. It starts with a discovery call. The discovery call is 30 minutes. It's really a way for us to learn about their challenges, what their needs are. A lot of people previously have come to us because they're in pain. They're usually burning talent. They don't know what to do. They've deployed different types of strategies, none of them at work. They probably have whatever their funding streams are complaining to them. You need to make changes. Internally, their staff teams are complaining and their marketplace is complaining. So that initial 30-minute phone call is a way for us to really listen to hear their challenges and how they talk about the challenge, which is really important. It's also a way for us to talk about our services. Like I said, we have consultancy services, different types of coaching services, training, facilitation. So just based on what the person tells me, and I'm listening to them as my team is, we talk about how we can help. And we usually give them 2 or 3 options just based on how they've laid out their problem. And then from there, we work toward what's the best path forward. And we make suggestions, and then it turns into a contract. So it's an enrollment process. And I say enrollment is different than sales. Enrollment is something that's relationship driven, it's values driven. I joke, I'm not making widgets over here. This is service based, and the work we do also means that we're pretty intimately involved with our clients. We know all the things going on behind the hood. And so it's really important that we build a rapport from day one.
Yeah, I love that. I'm super curious when you think of your vision and where you want to take the company, let's say over the next 12 months,
Yeah.
are there any specific revenue targets or milestones that you're aiming towards?
For sure. I think this is where I'm looking at the programs that can outlive me, right? That's really what's key here. So we have a proactive RFP strategy that 2 members of my team are running, which is also important because right now I'm the only enroller. So I was like, that's not sustainable. Other folks need support enrollment. So with them, they can do the research, the targeting, have the conversations, put those proposals together, send them out the door. That's great because that means I'm not doing it. They're owning that process, which is also revenue generation. So that's one. The other is membership. So something that a former client came to me and said, if you had a membership program for women in leadership, I would totally buy into that. Now, at the time, she was thinking through a DEI specific lens, which is also part of our work. But it's also about how do you lead in times of change, which is what we know how to do at ALC. So that's scheduled to launch in Q4. And then I'm just being really open-minded. Our e-learning courses, just based on what I'm seeing in the greater space people are needing, developing that content. We have 30 pieces of content we copyright last year. I'm just
Mm,
upgrading stuff. You know what I mean? Like part of this is how do we leverage what we've been doing for almost a decade in this marketplace and make it accessible and affordable?
yeah, I love that. What do you feel like is the biggest challenge to growing this and scaling this further?
I think as a founder, our biggest hindrance can be ourselves. There's ways in which we can get into our own way. I'm a convert to AI and I champion it and use it in smart ways. I actually took the assignment. I saw another founder do this, so I did over the weekend and I was off, took some time off. And I asked the AI tool to name my leadership, what it looked like, be
Yeah.
brutally honest, and then to also name my shadow side.
Interesting.
Okay. And the shadow side was things I think I already knew, but it's always interesting to have something else tell you what that is.
Yep.
And one of the shadow sides was this fear of letting go. And I think that's true for a lot of founders. I think that whatever we've birthed these companies, they're like our babies, basically, right? And so we're very attached to them. Perhaps the company is a part of our identity, quite literally. And so part of the scale means we have to let this go. Like we have to be able to give other people opportunity to step into their leadership. So I think that for me is a thing I'm proactively working on because that's how this thing lives beyond me, which again has been my goal this whole time. I always knew I wanted a business, but also a business that could grow and be bigger than me. It's part of my legacy is the things that I build, and this is something I've built. So that's the way that I'm wrestling with that in lifetime.
Yeah. It's tricky. It's not easy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to new founders, I'm curious, that are thinking about getting into consulting and maybe struggle with some of these challenges?
Yeah. The first thing I'll tell any new founder is you cannot do it alone.
Mm,
I was really fortunate. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and I've lived in different parts of the US. But the reason why I stayed here was because there is an incubator for entrepreneurs here. There are programs for women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and people who really do want to help. Lived in places where they say they want to help you, but they really don't. But this is a place where they really do. And in the early days, when I was just me on my couch with an idea, I was a part of these like small group discussions with other founders on what to do because I had no idea what I was doing. It's like its own masterclass for business. And it's so different than being an employee somewhere else. So I think having that support is just really key. And then the second is take the experience you have with you and your services and know that people are actually hiring you and your expertise. So I think from that perspective, you are the expert. So own it and set your pricing accordingly. That's really important. And
yeah.
then third, when you start getting clients, don't shy away from client feedback because ultimately you're creating services that fit the client's needs, not what you think their needs should be, but what their needs are and how they're
Yeah.
talking about those needs. And that's just super key.
100%. What is the best way for people to reach out to you to work with you?
Absolutely. So they can go to our website, jennifersconyers.com. Everything's there. Info at is linked there to our email. You'll see our blog, newsletter, LinkedIn, everything's there.
Awesome. Jennifer, thank you so much for your time
Yeah.
today.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. So that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or an agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to jump on a call with our team and discover how we went from zero to $30 million in less than 3 years. Until then, keep on climbing.